Hi, this is Curt and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
Any event. Okay, let's head over to Oregon. I'm going to I didn't do that other one so quickly, but I'm really going to try to go through this. This is important. And, this is an issue where, okay, one major thing you do, could be a good basis because if for sue. And I'm not trying to pick on the fire department, but I got to tell you, if I had to choose which side is winning this, I'm falling on the chief side. So let me go through the facts for everybody, right? I mean, it looks from the complaint, which is always one-sided, very damning. So again, to everybody, this is not a court decision like the last one. This is a lawsuit now filed. So here's what we have. We have a fire district, or it's the Columbia Fire and Rescue.
It's a fire district.
Is it a fire? Okay.
They don't call themselves a fire district, but on their website, it says they are a fire district.
Perfect. So a fire chief was terminated, and now he's suing for $20 million for defamation and a whole bunch of different things. He's named the fire district. He's named 4 members of the district's board. He's named the local IAFF. You'll see why. So here's what happens. He, for some reason, and look, he's the chief, right? He's the top dog of this thing. He reports concerns to the district attorney, criminal concerns about financial improprieties in the department. And he also raises concerns that certain people are in the retirement system who maybe aren't supposed to be in the system. So as a result, a criminal investigation is open. Now, let's start with this. If one of your people complains about something and they open an investigation, let the investigation go forward before you start retaliating against somebody, allegedly. And the reason is because you want to see what the DA says. If the DA came forward and say, listen, we're closing it, there's nothing here, we don't believe, there was any good faith to report this, not that any DA would ever say that, but nonetheless, okay, then maybe you terminate, right? But if the DA comes forward with something and makes the complaint credible, you sure as heck don't want to have terminated somebody who raised credible criminal issues. So what happens is the IAFF gets very upset about it, and they vote no confidence in the chief, which is a very tough position to be in when you're the chief, because you got to lead these people on a fire ground. And then the local sponsors, allegedly, I'm going to keep saying allegedly, right? These are the allegations, sponsors 3 new board members to get on the fire district's board, with the plan and the very allegedly openly stated purpose, we're going to vote out the fire chief. We're going to terminate him for cause. At least that's the for cause words are used by the plaintiff, by the fire chief. So they do get 3 people on the board. And shortly after taking office, they in fact fire the individual. But here's the thing. There's a report done, a forensic audit. I don't know if it's really a forensic audit, but in any event, they look into the financial management and alleged misconduct. And according to the complaint, what the forensic audit found was that some board members, including the new board members, and this is highly important, are implicated in questionable financial transactions, had credit card improprieties, failure to report certain payroll. They found there were very poor internal controls. I mean, they went through it. But the point I focused on is, wait a minute. If people who are alleged to be doing wrong in this report, which I have not read, so I don't know what it actually says, and if those people now terminate the chief, there could be more than just this civil lawsuit going on, right? I mean, talk about trying to cover your bases.
Ethical conflict of interest.
And maybe criminal conflict of interest. Or, I mean, they're public officials. In New York, at least, they'd be guilty potentially of public misconduct.
Yeah.
So nonetheless, if that is true, I also want to point out what the chief's life has allegedly been like. And they talk about this, and it's damning, because he said, I go to a restaurant where there's nobody there except one table, and I can't get a seat. They refuse to serve me, or they sit me in back where nobody else is, right? The community is clearly turned against the chief, which is strange. I don't know how vocal the chief has been out in the community about these things, because one would assume if the community heard, hey, there's improper financial improprieties, let's call it that way, taking place, you would think the community would stand behind the chief. I mean,
there's also another, and I want to, because I haven't really gotten the opportunity to update this, but apparently they replaced him with a new chief. And within a week or so, he resigned. And in that article, it talked about the fact that now the district is in financial, they're not going to be able to meet payroll. If things continue as they're going, they're not going to be able to meet payroll. There's financial distress. In addition, there's an awful lot of factual questions in here. The fire chief, he was appointed, I'm not sure where he came from, but he was appointed the fire chief. He came from another area in December 2020, actually, I believe took office in January of 2021. So he had been there about, I guess 2 years. And according to him, throughout those 2 years, he had been fighting with the finance director, who was a paid full-time employee. And she allegedly made the comment he was asking about finances and different things. And she kind of blew him off and said, go play fireman, let me worry about the money. And so he tried, and he'd go to the board and everything, and he wasn't getting anywhere with it. So he just said, okay, I'll, manage the fire department, but I am concerned about finances. So apparently in January of this year, as I recall, that's when he said enough is enough, he's got to go. And when he started looking into the pension part of this, she was in the firefighter pension. And she's a finance manager, but she was set up in the States as a firefighter, which I imagine gives her greater benefits. Okay. There were also some mechanics who were getting advantage, taking advantage, whatever. They were put in the pension, which it appears in hindsight now might not have been correct. I didn't see anything definitive that said that they shouldn't have been in it, but there's an investigation going on into whether or not there was some impropriety associated with that. But at any rate, one of the people who reportedly did not qualify for a firefighter pension was one of the board members who subsequently voted against the chief to get the chief out. He was one of the three that had the union's backing. But in the same article, they did talk about the fact that in early, I believe it was 2023, the local and the fire district settled a collective bargaining agreement with, whatever pay raises and all that stuff. So
which is amazing that they did that with 3 locals on the board. I don't know how.
No, this is before. No, this is before all this.
Okay.
This is early this year when this whole thing started. Right about the time when he went, right around the time he went to the district attorney.
Okay.
And there's actually 2 investigations. One is the district attorney's office looking at criminal charges. The other is the Oregon Public Employees Retirement System doing an investigation, which in turn has led to another investigation. I'm not sure if that's criminal, but bottom line is there's a couple of different investigations going on. But at any rate, the union and the district reach a collective bargaining agreement. Okay, it's approved and all that. Within about 2 weeks, the whether it was the fire chief or the board, whoever from the management side comes to the union and says, bad news, we can't honor that agreement that we just signed. Which, and I've been in a collective bargaining unit, I've been in, union member, and that doesn't fly very well. It speaks of fraud and mismanagement and corruption. Okay, but at any rate, now the union's upset, and what the article, and I'll post a link to it in the blog, but what they suggested was that the reason for the vote of no confidence in the chief had to do with that part of it, that number one, he should have been keeping an eye on the finances better. But number two, that they had an agreement, and the agreement was, just, by the way, we're not going to honor that agreement we just signed with you. So that is what led to the vote of no confidence. I don't know which of the two tales we've got here is the more accurate. Usually, right? It's somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere between, right?
Somewhere in the middle. But at any rate, there are sort of competing allegations as to what happened here. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, certainly from the Chiefs' perspective, if you look at it from the Chiefs' perspective, it's wrong that he got terminated. Absolutely, absolutely wrong. You look at it from another perspective, should he have been more diligent in pursuing the financial issues and getting them straightened out before it came to the point where they're sort of teetering on the, the brink of insolvency? There's some fair questions as far as that goes as well.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I'm curious. I assume not. There's probably no lawyer sitting at these meetings, because if there were and the lawyer had full knowledge of this, he would not have allowed certain people, or she would not have allowed people to vote. I mean, if you're accused of something, you shouldn't be voting to get rid of your accuser. It doesn't look good. Look, a lot of discrimination suits and harassment suits and, are optics, right? I mean, it's all optics. And like you said, it's never one thing, but here you got a lot of one things.
Well, you do. And you wonder if the state conflict of interest laws in terms of elected officials, that the person who is accused of getting a pension improperly, or, being in the pension system improperly, if whether or not they should have recused themselves, and that in and of itself could be a conflict of interest, having voted on it. But on the other hand, there's a lot of nuance in there as well. So it'd be another interesting one to follow.
Yeah. I would have appointed an independent board to determine anything about the hiring, right? But clearly this appears to be.